Hey everybody, Garcia here, and today we're taking a look at the latest expansion to Parks. This is Parks Wildlife. Wildlife here is the second expansion to Parks after Nightfall over here. And while Nightfall really shook up the formula of Parks and changed some of the aspects in interesting and distinct ways, Wildlife is generally more of the same. More of the kinds of cards that were in the original game, more of those same types of actions, while enhancing a few different things that perhaps tended to take a back seat in the original game, bringing those things to the forefront. It's going to focus on a few things, but generally on, well, the wild tokens, hence the name, I suspect. The wild tokens that can stand in for any of the resources are going to be front and center in this expansion. You'll have new ways to find them, new ways to convert into them, and new ways to use them. And there's also a few other things that will be, enhanced in this box, but that's generally it. Now, I'm not going to be showing you how to play Parks here. I'm merely going to be showing you the components that come in this relatively small box, and then we'll come back up here and I'll tell you what I think of this one. So here we've got all the new components for Parks Wildlife over on this side, and over here I've put some components from the base game just for the sake of comparison. The game's expansion here, Wildlife, has pretty much more of the same, though it does prioritize and bring to the forefront some things that could certainly take a back seat in the original game. And that is generally two things. It very much brings to the forefront wild tokens, the animal tokens, and it gives you 4 new ones as well. And then pictures, photos, and it gives you 4 of those also. Besides that, it includes, again, more cards of all the types included in the core box, and a new stack here of the special path tiles, the trail tiles, that are going to, therefore, be mixed with the originals, and you won't always get the same 4 as you go through the 4 seasons in the game. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these things. All right, so the first thing up here is new parks. You're going to get that many or so new parks. This is the original stack here. So a nice amount of new parks featuring some abilities here that are instantaneous. When you acquire this park, you also get a wild token. This is something we saw already in the Nightfall expansion, but if you're just getting this expansion, then that'll be a new thing to you. And it also features a new series, a new art series here, that it has this art style on it. And again, some animal tokens here, so a wild and sunshine for this, and you'll get a canteen when you complete that. And again, that's the new art style there, so there's a whole series of those. You're going to have some new gear. And again, these are going to prioritize those 2 things I said, wild tokens and photographs for the most part. So you'll have here new ways to turn tokens into wild tokens. You'll have ability to gain gear. They also, enhance that. The buffalo on this one, which I'll talk about in 1 second. But that's generally it. Again, it sort of brings more focus to not just acquiring parks, but the things around that. Things like wild and canteens and gear and, that sort of thing. There's that deck. Oh, and I should show you here how many there are compared to the original amount there. So a pretty good chunk of those. Then we've got these season cards, which doubles the amount in the original game, as you can see there. And these, again, are going to have slightly varied abilities. The layout down here of the tokens that will show up on the path, and then some new concepts here. So whenever you use your campfire, all players at that site are going to gain some sunshine. Placing trees at the end of the 3 slots of the trail. Whenever you use your campsite at another player's site, they can take a photograph for a token. Gain water when you reserve a park. All gears cost just that. And so on and so on. Again, you'll see things being highlighted here that were not brought to the forefront in the original game. And then we've got canteens as well, a nice amount of those. Almost as many as in the original game. And then these are going to have some new abilities as well. Many of them will let you take a photograph, as you see there, with different abilities, or just get you some resources. So there you go, just shuffle those in. So let's talk about these tiles here, and let's talk about the buffalo token there. So the buffalo token is going to show up. There's 3 of these that are available in the game. You're going to put it out on the first one. I'll just lay it down for now. And that one cannot be reserved. That one cannot be taken and put into a player's hand. But when you do pay for it and visit that park, you'll do this. You'll get that in this case, but you are also allowed to turn in a token and get a wild symbol here. So get one of these pieces that can be anything you wanted to. So if you visit this park, you're allowed to do it. You can do it before or after even. So you could turn something not useful, say a mountain, into a wild piece, and then use that wild piece to pay for one of these. Once that's done, obviously that player will take this park. This moves to the next one, and then we put out a new park there. And this continues to happen. Whenever it moves off of this one because someone acquires this card, it goes back to the beginning, and then at that point we are going to cycle out. Whoever moved it gets to cycle out a piece of gear and replace it with a new piece of gear. Or you can cycle them all out, which is a variant listed in the book, if you are playing with a lower player count, just to see some new cards, okay? Which I do like. I like that variant, and this doesn't happen quickly enough or frequently enough where I think wiping all 3 and putting out all new gear would be problematic. So that is a variant I do enjoy. So that's what it does. Not a lot, honestly. It just, again, enhances the player's ability to get more wild tokens. They also, in the rulebook, will mention a variant that was included already in Nightfall as an optional variant, and they mentioned it here again, where you can use a wild token. This is called the Wild Love rule, where a wild token here can be used to pay for 2 generic costs. And that is, I don't know if there's any in here, but it allows you to, let me find it, on some of these. Very expensive there, as you can see. There's none in here. But basically, if there's a brown square on one of these that has a 2 in it, meaning 2 of anything, a single wild will pay for those 2. So that rule, you can put it to effect, and they recommend it. It's a fine rule. Certainly feel free to use that. And then these over here, which are a very interesting part of the game. At the beginning of the game, instead of you going through all 4 of these for the 4 seasons, you will always have this one be the first one that shows up, shuffle it in, it ends up anywhere in that path, and then the rest of these are all shuffled together, and you will see 3 more of them. And obviously now you cannot count on something showing up because it might not be one of those 3. So here we've got the original one, this is always the first one, and we've got these that were in the original game, and now we've got 4 more. This one lets you cash in a photo for 1 of each of the tokens. This one gives everybody else, every other player, sunshine, and then you get to utilize a location on the trail that's empty. This one here lets you reactivate a canteen that is filled when you go there. And then this one lets you give up a wild token and get 2 sunshine and 2 water. So again, pretty simple and straightforward, but some variety along the way so you cannot count on something showing up. So that's basically it. More of what's in there and a prioritizing of some things that perhaps felt a little underutilized in the original core box. All right, so that's all the bits that come in wildlife. Let's go ahead and talk about it, shall we? We're going to start with the theme and the setting at the top. And it is good. It is largely more of the same. I suspect I'll be saying that a few more times. But it folds right in. It's just going to give you that same feeling, the gorgeous setting, and folds right in very smoothly and easily. The aesthetics, I think, are beautiful. Great component quality. Again, largely more of what we've seen. Though I will say, I think the new art series, which is very much front and center, it's even featured on the inside of the lid here, and the bottom of the box as well. There's no insert in this, by the way, as far as I could tell here. It's just, it features this artwork on the inside. So that is very much a big focus, I feel, of celebrating a new series of artwork that I guess was just commissioned and just came out for the parks. I like the look of these. I don't think they fold in as seamlessly as I would have liked. It's a very distinct art style that doesn't really fit all of the other illustrations that are already in the game, and even some of the ones that came in Nightfall, So yes, I like it. It's just, it does stick out a bit, this new series of 10 or so images that all have this collage sort of look. The replay value, it's good. It's variety, right? It's more of what was there. No big changes, but it's going to give you more replayability, enhance a few things that mean you'll play a bit more differently. Perhaps you'll focus on different things from session to session a little more now with this expansion folded in. The game arc very much falls in line with that. There are more distinct paths now. You can try to sneak in a few more points from pictures, from photos than you would have in the past. You can get around not being able to snag a specific resource from getting those wild tokens. Your gear is going to do new things for you. The seasons are going to be, changed up a little bit. There might now be some interesting things to deal with this season as opposed to just the usual parks that cost trees are one tree cheaper. Those are pretty standard. There's now some interesting new things in there. Next up, ease of play. And in this one, I thought the rule book could have been better. I thought the rule book doesn't have enough illustrations, for one thing. It's also very small. And it keeps referencing Nightfall, which I actually think is a mistake. Now, I know this expansion was first, but to me, Wildlife almost seems like the first expansion you should get, okay? That's not to say I think it's the better one of the two. And in fact, I'll tell you right now, I do not think that's true. I think Nightfall is the better expansion of the two. It's more interesting content. It's distinct. It changes the flavor of the game a little bit more and in cleverer ways. But I do think that Wildlife is the easier expansion to fold into the game. And yet, as I kept reading the rulebook / pamphlet, it's very small. There are almost no pictures in there, which I think would have been good. And they keep referencing Nightfall. Like in Nightfall, this rule applies. If you did this, if you want to do that as found in Nightfall. And I thought that was a mistake. I thought that was an interesting crutch that they kept falling back to. Whereas many folks are going to come across this at a Barnes & Noble or something and have no idea that this is the second expansion. It doesn't say anything about that, which is good. It shouldn't. Don't discourage people from buying this. Let them buy it. But then don't mention the other expansion so much. Perhaps a little box somewhere near the back of the rulebook that says, if you also are playing with Nightfall, do these things. But don't sprinkle it around the entire thing. Anyway, I thought the rulebook, especially compared to the main rulebook and the one included in this expansion, could have used more illustrations and could have been a little stronger. Lastly, tactics, luck, strategy. Generally, I think it opens up the play a little bit. It doesn't give you anything new. It doesn't shake up the formula, so to speak, but it does give you a little more breathing room with everything. One thing I should mention, I didn't mention in the overview, is if you are using this expansion, every time you would take a canteen, you now draw 2 of those, and you keep one and put the other one at the bottom of the deck. So it gives you a little more choice, and because there are now many more, you have that interesting, they have the ability to do that. You have now more choices. So that's good. And it just kind of enhances a few new things. It opens up the play a little bit. It gives you some wiggle room, which I appreciated. Having said that, though, this is not a big change from the game. Yes, it feels a little more loose in a good way, okay? Like it lets me play around a little bit. But I still think Nightfall was a tremendous expansion that gave you... This one explored design space, new design space in this game, with some new ideas, new ways to tackle some things, new action choices. Wildlife doesn't really do that. It is, in the simplest terms, more of the same. That is not bad by any means. I just like Nightfall better. And if you forced me to recommend only one, I would say Nightfall. Though I certainly recommend this. And I would switch the order in which you buy them. Again, I would get this first, and then Nightfall, because it's going to change you some more. So there you go. That is Wildlife, everybody. This one's going to get a 7 out of 10 from me. That is a seal of approval. It's nice to have more for the wonderful game of Parks, to give you new things to think about, just gorgeous new artwork to look at, and interesting ways to play the game that are going to behave a little differently. But it is not a tremendous expansion. Solid. Very good. 7 out of 10. And that's going to do it for me, everybody. Thanks very much for checking this out with me. My name is Z Garcia. I'll see you on the next one.